Hey guys, this is Christians in the Gritty. Life is hard.
And man, we've lived it.
We sure have. We are just two sisters doing our best to please God through it all.
And having fun doing it.
Woo!
So I've just been thinking a lot about belonging lately.
Yeah.
And I know we started talking about it and just like wanting to be around people who like love us.
Yeah.
For who we are.
Yeah. And it's really hard in this world. Not only in this world, but even in Christianity, in Christian friends. Just the sin, our flesh nature is to be us want to feel wanted and seen, and it's just our nature to want that to be liked.
Right. And you were saying about the cool kids.
Yeah.
So,
Like to feel like you're in the cool kids club, but the cool kids aren't where everyone's supposed to be.
yeah.
And I'm not saying anything bad about some of the people in there are really going after God, you know, in the cool kids club and art, you know what I mean? But like at the same time, that's not God's path for us.
Yeah. And really, who are the cool kids, right? Like, it depends who you think's cool.
Yeah. And that's another thing I was thinking earlier is, I told her I was struggling with that in the past, like after going to this big church, is like, where do I fit in this
Yeah.
big church? And some things happen, or like you don't fit in here, you're trying to fit in here or there. And God just said to me, just keep looking to me and just keep growing in me, and don't worry about that. It'll
Yeah.
all come. You're listening to Christians in the Gritty. This is Melissa.
And Christina. I've been struggling the same way. And it's just like, you know, you're right. We do need to look to God. And He's going to lead us where He wants us.
Yeah.
And even in our calling, that might not be necessarily the people surrounding us, might not be who He wants us to really connect to
Yeah.
and grow with. And I think we're kind of getting that like through Bible study,
Yeah.
is like we're really connecting with some people.
Yeah. And they're cool.
Yeah. And I think they're awesome.
Yeah. And that's like you said, it's all in the eye of the beholder, right?
Yeah.
Because there was very popular kids even at our school that weren't very cool to me. They were mean.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be like them, and I don't want to be around them. So,
Yeah. So really, who does God want us connecting with
yeah.
in our lives?
And
in
maybe
this
He was pushing us away from other people so that way we'd stay together.
Yeah.
I never thought about it to this moment. I just made a really funky face at her, like, oh.
And sometimes we really joke, and Melissa has said this before. She's like, "Oh, I'm stealing your friends." But really, it's like we can be friends with the same people.
Yeah, like I met her through my sister because they were best friends, but whatever.
But even so, it's like maybe you need each other right now
yeah.
more than we need each other, like more than me and that person or whoever.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't look at it as you stole my friend because I feel like we're still friends.
Yeah.
Like I'm still friends with these people. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
maybe you need that connection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe they need to hear something that I have been through, or, you know, that sort of thing. But exactly. And you know what? If we're going to be close, why wouldn't our friends be close with each other?
That's what I was just going to say.
Because like I would say, like the one person in Bible study is closer to me, but it's awesome that you guys are getting closer too. So it's like, I don't have to divide my time. And that's another thing. We don't have a lot of time. So it's nice to be able to, I love the Bible study that you have really pushed to form.
Well, and it's something that God called me to a long time ago, and I started it.
Yeah.
And then COVID. And I was actually doing it during COVID, and that was pretty hard.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is like a special group,
It is.
and I don't want it to grow too big. I mean, yeah, I would be willing to do another study separately,
Yeah.
but like with just whoever wants to come.
Yeah.
But like, I
And
think
we're not
it's-
trying to be like, you can't sit here, but there's something about
No.
forming that really tight
I think
circle.
everybody needs their little circle like that.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're going to get your accountability and your growth for God.
It's where you're going to open up.
Yes. And that's what I was going to say is I feel like I can talk to every one of you about any of the same thing.
That's awesome.
And it will feel okay.
Yeah. It's like, it's not going to travel from them.
There's a trust there.
Mm-hmm.
It really makes me think of when we're talking about everything we're saying is that we don't want to be alone. That's the gist of it, right?
Yeah.
And so using, again, the Life Bible app, which is amazing, the touch points, this one is about belonging. Mm-hmm. And this actually says, no one wants to be alone, but as a believer, why do I belong in fellowship with God's people? And this is Romans 12, 4-5. Just as our bodies have many parts and each part has a special function, so it is with Christ's body. We are many parts of one body and we all belong to each other. And that kind of makes me think what we've been talking about, belonging to certain people, but also even those that we maybe don't feel like we jive with. They're still part of Christ's body, right?
Right. Yeah. And they still belong in there. And it's not saying that we don't, maybe we like them, we're just don't connect.
Right.
Because maybe they're a toe and we're a finger.
Like, you need to be up there and I need to be down there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But seriously, I recall having a conversation with you, Melissa, about this one person that I just really felt like I wanted to connect with.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're not connecting. And I really feel like they could be such a good friend. And why am I not connecting with them?
Yeah.
And I think, like, now we've connected more.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, quit trying to force these relationships, Christina. Like,
yeah. And then it's never going to make you feel good. If you try to force something, you're always going to be like, why isn't this working? Mm-hmm. But when you how much better does it feel when you let those things just happen? Like when someone comes up to you and you're like, yes, that is exactly it, whatever the subject is. And it's like, man, this person gets me. Yeah. Like, why would you want to hang out with someone who doesn't get you?
Yeah. And sometimes, too, I feel like people think I'm judging them when I really am not.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying I never judge because we all do.
Go ahead.
But I'm just saying, like, I can think of particular people, like, I felt like I was getting really close with. Mm-hmm. And now I'm like, no, we're not. And I feel like people think I'm judging them.
Are people thinking that you're judging them, or is that something that you think you're doing and then you pull away?
I don't know.
Because sometimes I think you get in your own head like, oh, they probably think I'm judging them. I'm not. Maybe I'm wrong. Because I don't know.
Like, you think maybe I am judging them?
No.
But yeah, I'm like...
No, like you are like in your own head going, I bet you they just thought I judged them by what I just said. I'm going to pull away from them now.
Oh, that's possible. And we've talked about this in the past about how, not about judging people, but how we do something stupid.
Yeah. Like, and then we're like, they think I'm stupid. Let me leave.
Let me never talk to them ever again.
And then who's the one that left this situation? They're like, what are you even talking about? I don't remember that. Like, right? Or something,
So now, like, I can think of one person in particular, and I'm not going to use any names or anything. And maybe if I did, maybe they would hear it and laugh. But I seriously, I did, like, said something really idiotic, and I did that. And now every time I see them, I'm like, look at them really
You're all awkward.
And I'm just like, hi. And they're like, hi.
And then they know it's awkward.
And then they're like, okay, this is awkward. They're probably thinking this ain't, like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Oh,
I do.
People are being awkward with you. We should really just open up and be like, okay, if you know what it is, speak it. If you don't know what it is, be like, what's going on?
Yeah. If I'm being awkward with you, it's either because I'm really comfortable and I think it's funny. Like, I can be goofy.
You unmask your crazy?
Yeah. Or if I am being awkward with you, but I don't really talk or have conversation, I probably am really anxious.
She either doesn't know how to connect to you, because I know, because this is me too, or she's like thinking about the things she thinks she did wrong.
Yeah. Ugh,
Yeah.
seriously. But I guess just going back to remembering that Christ's body all works together as one. And just like Melissa said, maybe we're just different parts of that body.
Yeah.
Right? But even so, when I'm like working closely with people, sometimes I still don't feel like I belong in those parts.
Yeah. And what is the Bible study that we just have been going through?
Mm-hmm.
What is it called? Because I always try to put the word just in it.
Oh, I do too. And I've heard her do it too, Lisa Turkers.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's being more than a, what is it called?
Becoming
more than a good Bible study girl. Okay. But yeah, she talks about how not everything in this world is for us. And we're not equipped for it. And I feel like that could also go to relationships.
Yeah.
Like, not every relationship is for you. Could you imagine how exhausting it would be if everybody was your friend?
Oh, I know. And we've talked about this before too.
You don't have time for that.
Like you and I don't know if we have on the podcast.
Yes.
But like, yeah, how would we ever grow closer to people?
Yeah, you'd always have acquaintances, which I struggled with for a long time because I really get along with people and I'm really good at the first and second time I'm around you and hang out, and then a big gap, and then the first, second time, it's the masking. And so I'm really good at being an acquaintance.
Yeah. I mean, and really, so if I had to go on a long trip with someone and I didn't know them, but we had to ride, like I was riding shotgun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going like 5 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
I could probably talk your ear off.
Yeah.
Or sitting beside you on a plane, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, it's like, okay, we're out of the vehicle. Like, I'm not trapped with you anymore. I don't have to talk, right?
I don't know.
I
That's
don't
probably
know if
more
that's
you.
it.
Exactly. Because then you're like, okay, this person's doesn't have to talk to me anymore. It makes the situation where you have to fight. Like, where you have to find a reason. Like, I used to never go to people's houses unless they invited me.
Yeah.
I still am that way.
Yeah.
I will not come over to your house unless you invite me.
That was Grandma Montag. Do you remember that? She didn't come out to
Uncle
our house.
David keeps telling me that I remind him more and more of his mom all the time. Like, even I don't know. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, because Mom said that before, that Grandma said
She
wasn't invited over. That's why she didn't come.
Yeah, because Mom would wonder why she never came to the house. And she's like, well, you didn't invite me.
Yeah, I think it for her is more of a respect, like a boundary.
Well, it was a boundary that she was respecting, actually, when a mother-in-law. I think it was more of the fact that she was Mom's mother-in-law, and that was her space. That was Mom's space. She didn't want to invade it unless she was invited.
Yeah. I would just picture her to sit there quietly. If she didn't agree with a parenting technique or something,
Don't ask her, though.
Stare.
Because she'll tell you.
So I saw judgment in her too.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us are perfect.
No, but she will tell you if you asked her, because I've asked her a few things and she would tell me. Like, for example, I used to work at doing housekeeping for a hotel.
Uh-huh.
And she was talking about somebody was talking about taking those little soaps and stuff. She's like, well, I would not. And I'm like, Grandma, that's in the budget for, like, once you use it, they'll throw it away. Those are yours to take home. They're in the money that you spent on the room. And she's like, no. I'm like, I promise. You're not allowed to take the blow dryer. You're not allowed to, you know what I mean? But those things are yours. You paid for them, so you can take them.
Like, leave the
And she's
mattress
like,
and the picture on the wall.
yeah, like, yeah. She's like, okay. It still made her feel odd, to take it. But they're not going to keep them. Those are yours. You already paid for it.
And think about it, Grandma. Like, if
you're not going to use a open soap.
Somebody, you don't know who they are. Yeah. And you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know these people is what I'm saying. Okay. So we were talking about the Bible study, and I was just like looking at some of the things. Lisa says on this, no amount of worldly achievement whisk away insecurities and the fundamental desire to be accepted. Okay, 1 Peter 4:7-8 says, The end of all things is near. Therefore, be alert and of sober mind so that you may pray. Above all, love each other deeply because love covers over a multitude of sins. I'm going to continue. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms.
So this will take us straight into like, okay, so what if we don't belong and what if people don't belong? But we still need to care for one another. Like you were saying, just because they're part of the feet and you're part of the hands or whatever, that doesn't mean that we don't get along and we don't, have a love for one another just because they're not in your circle. So we need to continue to care for one another and be there for one another.
Yeah. And just remembering, who are we ultimately serving and living for?
Yeah.
Is God.
It's God, if you didn't know.
Just in case. So,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Really, that's what we need to keep in mind at all times.
Yeah.
Even when we're feeling like we don't belong. And that's another thing, is that God created us, like our TikTok from last week, or a couple weeks ago. God created us to be who we are. And he created us exactly how he wanted us, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't remember, maybe it was in this Bible study as well, but isn't that such an insult to God? Or I might have seen it somewhere else, when you're saying, oh, I don't like this about myself, or, he created you like that. Quit not liking it.
Right. And that's not to say that God won't sharpen you and take your we have weaknesses, yes. But those weaknesses, I kind of feel like, and Andrew from community group in our church also brought it up one time, that sometimes the weaknesses are good because that's what brings you to God to look for his guidance. Like we were talking about one day, if we were all perfect, we would never seek God. We said that in Bible study.
We wouldn't rely on him.
We wouldn't need him.
That's what I was going to say. Why would we? Why would we need him?
Because we're perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and also our weaknesses sometimes helps us relate to other people who have the same weakness. And who are still growing, and that we can help grow. Like God already helped us grow. Yeah. And that's another way that you can connect. And you don't have to be in any kind of cool group like we were talking about, because honestly, it's all in your perspective for one thing. But I always had a lot better time in the loners club.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, you could be yourself. You could be yourself.
And I always liked people that didn't always like fit in. Is
And
what I mean by
really,
that.
like what we're saying, what's your definition of cool? Some people we thought were in the cool club probably thought the opposite, like about themselves.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah. Sometimes, especially in high school, I'm not talking about church as much, but it could relate. It's like a lot of times the people are only focused on the fact of being popular and doing everything so everyone always likes them, but they're not really being themselves, and they're not happy. Because can you imagine the amount of energy that would go into just always pleasing everyone, or being mean? So that way you could put a wall up, because sometimes people are popular because people are afraid of them. Yeah. And it's like, wouldn't you be miserable?
Yeah. It's like, what do you want to be known for? In my small group, we just did a devotional in the
youth
version app. Okay. Yeah. And it's called Reputation, if you want to check it out. But I just thought that was so good for the girls. I'm trying to pick ones out that, can help them grow. But what do you want to be known for in your life, right? We talked about how Saul changed, from Saul persecuting Christians to being Paul, just loving God and telling others all about him, right? Yeah. And so just showing that, okay, if you have a reputation you don't like and you know that God doesn't want you to have, you can turn it around as well.
You really can, because like I was just talking about, you continue to seek God and people will see it. People will see it. And it's not that you're doing those things for those people to see, but really the fact of what does that matter? Honestly, if we go out of this world and no one liked us, but God was very happy about how we were living our lives, what does it matter?
Yeah. And then we're going to live eternity in joy and happiness. No sorrows.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something that, we were made for people. We were made for community, which there's a lot of scripture in the Bible about how we were made for community.
Yeah. Which, I mean, just going back to the first verse in Romans that we were reading is like Christ's body working together. That is community.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? I'm going to say it again is like, I love our community group.
Yes, I do too.
Like
so much.
That's how I've made so many connections with people in our church. And I know some people are like, I don't have time for that. And it's so important.
It is. Well, especially because like we were saying, you don't need to be liked by everyone. You just need that small group of people. And that in a bigger church like we have for this area anyways, that's important because you can't know every single person there. Like, I don't know every single person that goes to our church, and that's kind of odd to say because I've never had that in my life. Ever.
Yeah.
But you can't. And when you're in that small knit group, like you said, you're holding people accountable. You're able to notice when someone's missing and check on them. And be there for them and be in their lives and do life with them. And if they need something, you're there.
Yeah. Which that also makes me think about is like when I was going to a smaller church for a while, if Mark and I were not there, the pastor would call and check, hey, just want to see where you guys were. Is everything okay?
Make you feel guilty.
Yeah, I'm okay. We went and visited this church. Or yeah, we're okay. Whatever.
Yeah.
And insert excuse for not going to church.
Well,
like, let me liven up the bad excuse.
Yeah.
That's what it was at that time.
I don't always make it, but like life happens and it's good that he's checking on you because then you're going to be accountable. You're only going to miss. You're not going to miss just because, I didn't feel like going today, Pastor. Like, that makes you accountable.
Yeah.
And if there's a real reason.
Eventually it ended up being, okay, well, this church is quite a distance away. Like, which it wasn't just that. But we did switch churches. It was a lot closer. But also that we didn't belong there.
And that we have felt called many times out of places.
Yeah. And at that time, I wasn't really where I was like, tuned into God as much. Like I wasn't like, God's calling us to this place. I went back to that belonging. Nobody talked to us there. We tried it for a few months. It wasn't like we just went and one time nobody talked to us. Like we tried.
Yeah. And sometimes that's the hard part. If you're in a smaller church, it's really easy to stay in that close knit because I've been there a lot of times and then just stare at the people that walked into your church. I say it like that, your church.
Yeah.
It's not your church. It's God's church. And remember to gobble them up because maybe they're not going to go find another church that will.
Yeah. But I've also come to another realization. And for us, we let our anxieties get in the way of making connections with people. Even then, when, yes, I do feel like, especially at a smaller church, you can reach out to people easier.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't go to an event with 20 people and not one person say a word to you, right?
Yeah.
It's also our responsibility going in somewhere. You can't just rely on other people, right? Like, you should reach out and try and talk to others as well. And I know it's hard, but I think it's just as hard for those people to talk to you sometimes.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm learning that myself.
Yeah.
Is that if I go somewhere new, I need to also try and step out of my comfort zone and talk to people. I don't know. And especially like our churches, I would call larger. And we can't expect the pastor to be able to talk to everybody. So,
No, and that's why the small groups and the community groups are so important.
Yes.
Bible studies. Because then people will know you're there. Like, if you're not plugging yourselves into these programs and connecting, making the effort to connect, like you were saying, then people aren't going to know that you need anything or who you are or anything like that. Yeah. And you're going to feel like, man, the pastor isn't really even, well, that's why he calls people to come to, if you're new, come to the welcome center because we want to talk to you.
Yeah. And you might have to wait a minute while we finish a conversation with someone else,
Yeah.
you know, because maybe that person needed them very much, you know, maybe they're a new believer that just got saved today or whatever. I just feel like we can all do better.
Yeah.
I'm challenging myself, but lately, for some reason, during meet and greet at church, I can't get out of my spot.
Why?
Because there's like so many people and everybody makes it over to us and starts talking.
Uh-huh.
And
okay.
I don't make it out to go talk to new people.
Yeah.
This is happening just as that's something that I'm wanting to work on.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's not supposed to be easy when we work on things, is it?
Yeah. But, yeah, so.
I have a verse, too, that is in John 13:34. It says, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. That's Jesus. That's just talking about, you know, like, let's make sure we love one another. And I do want to plug another, if you're having struggles figuring out who to put into your small group, if you're, you know, struggling with that, there's a great Bible study that we did a while back called Find Your People by Jeannie Allen. And it really focuses on where your small, tight-knit group of people should be. Because we need to be in their lives. Like, and you want to have those people be your tight-knit group of people. Not that you can't have long-distance friends, but they should be, like, really in your everyday life. So where you're at. So where do you go? That's where you find them. Not only is it easier to find them, but it's easier to stay in their life.
Yeah. I think, too, just going back to having that within your church as well helps your church to grow spiritually. Because just like we were talking about all the parts. So let me read this verse as well. Ephesians 4:15 through 16. We will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church. He makes the whole body fit together perfectly as each part does its own special work. It helps the other parts grow so that the whole body is healthy and growing and full of love. I mean, but like Melissa was saying, though, too, is like at your workplace or whatever, where do you run into people? I mean, I think you should pull in people from different aspects of your life.
I'm going to read a little excerpt from Jeannie Allen's book, Find Your People. It's just there in like chapter 1. It says, do you believe that you were built for true radical connection? Even if you're an introvert, we all are physically, emotionally, and spiritually hardwired by God for relationship. From the moment you were born until you take your last breath, deep, authentic connection is the thing your soul most craves. Not just as an occasional experience, but as a reality woven into every day of your life.
I think you start even before you're born. I mean, you recognize the voice of those closest to you. And that's why babies want their mom so much, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think, yeah, she's right, though.
A lot of that, too, is the things that we seek when we're not Christians. Because I also think that the connection to God is woven in there. And I don't just think it, I know it. And when you see a lot of people searching for those things that are making them happy that are not Christian, that's because they have that drive too, but they're not filling it with God.
Yeah.
And so they fill it with their godship, what they find that they worship at the time. and then never brings them the happiness that God would bring.
Yeah. You don't get the fullness that you're searching for.
Yeah, it's not filling that craving that was put into you to have. So search for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking when we were talking about what we were idolizing in our podcast.
In our last podcast.
Is that that's exactly what I was doing, is I was trying to fill up an emptiness, right?
Yeah.
And I was never getting it. I was never being fulfilled. And you might feel like you are fulfilling it for a minute, you know, maybe a short amount of time or whatever.
But if it fulfilled you, why would you keep needing to fill it with more? Like when I make that, I just need to make partner. Oh, now I just need to make senior partner. Now I need to be CEO. Now I need to, own my own whatever. I feel like it never stops, no matter if you are clear up there.
Yeah. And you know, like I've had jobs where I just like worked really hard, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't get the promotion.
Yeah.
And I just feel like God did that on purpose, you know?
Yeah, because that's not where we're supposed to be. But that's just the thing, too, is God wants us in certain places, and he wants us seeking him.
Yeah.
And that is woven in there, just like connecting to people. Because we need like you said, accountability. We need fellowship. We need those things with each other.
Yeah. And so another one of these touch point questions is, why is it important to feel like we belong somewhere or to someone? So Deuteronomy 33:27 says, the eternal God is your refuge, and his everlasting arms are under you. He drives out the enemy before you. He cries out, destroy them. And it says, note 3 benefits in this verse related to belonging to God. 1, he provides protection, the refuge. He provides support. His arms are under you. He actively defends. He drives out the enemy. It says twice we are reminded that these benefits are permanent, eternal, and everlasting. We live in rebellion against God when we seek to find these benefits in any other being, system, or idol. Acknowledging God as God leads to a life of purpose and direction.
That's funny because it's the same type of scripture that I just sent to Michelle, who please pray for Michelle. And we're not going to boast put all of her stuff out there, but she's our cousin's wife, and just pray for her. But I just sent this to her, and it says, but you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, and the one who lifts up my head. I cry aloud to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. Sheila, or what is that? Selah, I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me. That's Psalms 3:3-5. But right before that, even, it talks about protecting from the enemy and stuff. So, yeah. It's just all over the Bible where it talks about like God just protecting us, and, you know, yeah, just like very similar to that.
Yeah. And Psalms has a lot of great encouragement in it.
Yeah.
And just talking about that, like, you know, another verse that's saying, you hem me in on all sides, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact verse, but, yeah, God's definitely our protector.
Yeah.
And he's the most important one to belong to.
No doubt. And, you know, okay, so I don't know, to take this from, you know, wanting to belong or whatever, into the fact that we were talking about David and Saul. 1 Chronicles 12:17, David went out to meet them and said to them, if you have come in peace to help me, my heart will be united with you. But if you have come to betray me to my enemies, even though my hands have done no wrong, may the God of our ancestors look on it and judge. Then the Spirit enveloped Amasai, chief of the 30, and he said, we are yours, David. We are with you, son of Jesse, peace, peace to you, and peace to him who helps you. For your God helps you. Because he loved God so much that he sent the people. And then I'm going to go down here. And it says, like, because David's wondering, okay, is everyone against me? Because he sent messengers to say, hey, I'm sorry for your loss, basically. And then they stripped him and humiliated his messengers and sent them out. Like, what a smack in the face.
Yeah, because they thought that David was mocking them.
Yeah, and he was just saying, no, I'm sorry. I think it was their father died or something. He's like, I'm sorry your father died.
Yeah.
Let me just send my condolences. And and so he's coming from, that sort of thing and being like, okay, when you feel like nobody likes you or whatever, or you don't know who your enemies are. Yeah. And then God says, I have you. And then,
I was just going to say, like, that's the side I'm on sometimes is the ones that sent back, David's men stripped, right? I'm them people. Like, that's who I am when I am pushing people away by getting in my head and saying, oh, they don't like me.
Yes, because the people that he was just saying nice things to them and saying, hey, I'm sorry your father died. And it's like, get away from me. Quit making fun of me.
Yeah.
Let me make fun of you. Not that we do that, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But then it says that again in 1 Chronicle 12, where in chapter 22, at that time men came day after day to help David until there was a great army, like an army of God. And it says, and continuing to on, the numbers of the armed troops who came to David at Hebron to turn Saul's kingdom over to him, according to the Lord, were as follows. And I'm not going to read that all, but it was like 6,800 people, 7,100 people, 4,600 people, like from different places, 3,700. And then it goes on to where the people from the kingdom of Saul, where they weren't as many at first because they were still aligned, but then end up coming with him anyways eventually. It's like God's going to send those people to you that need to be in your life is my point. Yeah. And obviously because it says over and over again, because David was seeking God and David loved God, that God continually took care of him in that way. And even when he felt like, okay, are you just here? Like in the one part where he's like, saying, are you my enemy? And I don't know if you're here to just do whatever. And
I love how he asks.
Yeah.
I'm going to start doing that. Are you like me? Are you my enemy?
Are you my enemy? And they'll be like, what?
Am I giving off those vibes?
If you have come here in peace to help me, then fine. No, you didn't say that. My heart will be united with you.
That kind of language would be silly today, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but isn't that amazing? Like, God even helps us in those ways. Like, you need people, here they come. And we've had that so many times in our lives, Brandon and I, and this community come together for us and everything, even with like ups and downs in it. But it's amazing to all the people that have just, and that's things Brandon used to do. That's something that at his ALS appointment yesterday that the lady brought up is like, people saw you doing those things. Like, you may not have saw him doing them, but like people would call and say, hey, my furnace stopped working. And he would just go, I'm going to go to so-and-so's house. I'll be back. It's not like he would charge them. And he would just help them, you know? And they would try to give him money or whatever. And he's like, it's nothing. Like, you'd pay for the part or whatever. Or if they needed more work, he would refer them to Nathan. Because he also didn't want to step on Nathan's toes, but he also wanted to help people out. You know what I mean? But like at the same time, he would always just leave and go if you called him. Or he still does this. He'll get on the phone and talk you through whatever you're doing. So, I mean, when we put that out there and I think I always help people too. I don't know if
if somebody calls and needs it.
I just gonna do it, or all the things you serve the community, but we appreciate those things, and God will always put those people where they need to be. Like, I don't worry like I used to.
Yeah. So not only does God put people in your life, he puts you in other people's lives. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to read this verse because I think it's like pretty powerful feeling, but it says, what does God do for those who belong to him? So Deuteronomy 28, 9 through 10, the Lord will establish you as his holy people, as he swore he would do. Then all the nations of the world will see that you are a people claimed by the Lord, and they will stand in awe of you. When we're following God, people are going to see that in you, and they might not be accepting of it. It doesn't mean that, but
I know we got 3 dislikes on YouTube. No, just kidding.
On a post we made. I was like, aw.
I'm like, they probably don't believe in God.
Maybe not. Or I guess I would hope if somebody disliked it and they were a Christian, that they told us what they disagreed with.
Yeah.
Tell me what you disagree with.
I don't think that's what it was.
Yeah.
People get offended about God because, and it's usually only God and Christianity like that people, I don't know, because it's real.
Feeling strongly opposed to.
Yeah.
I just want to share it, so I'm gonna.
Okay.
It's Isaiah 26:19. Those who die in the Lord will live. Their bodies will rise again. Those who sleep in the earth will rise up and sing for joy, for your life-giving light will fall like dew on your people in the place of the dead. And then this is in the Life Bible app as well. So their commentary, quote unquote, life-giving light is a picture of God's resurrecting power. Belonging to God is an eternal relationship, one not only for this world, but also for the world to come. The grave is not the last chapter of our lives, but merely a transitional one. These are the promises of God. Like, if we are saying we belong to God, like, people are going to stand in awe of you if you're living right for him. And ultimately, you can bring others to Christ that way.
Yeah.
And also, he's promising, like, when we die, there's more for us.
Yeah.
Like, we're not just going to live, we don't have to live eternal damnation, right?
Yeah. And when you were saying that thing about, and people will be in awe of you, and it's not something that people will be in awe about. Because there's been a lot of times in my life, and I'm sure in many Christians' lives, when you are following God like that, where you're just doing what you need to do, and people come up to you and go, man, I've been watching you. It makes me want to cry. And I see how strong you are, and I'm like, I was not strong.
Yeah.
And that was not me. That was God. And they see it, and they're in awe of you, and you're like, that was my worst. And they're in awe of it. And I don't know. It's just, you're not going to know that. But trust me, people are, because they're going to see. And like, how do you understand this Bible like you do? It wasn't always that way. I'm in awe of how you can understand that. I was like, I pray before I do it. I've been studying a long time. Like, it was not always this way. Just keep going.
Yes. and God might not want you to have that revelation right now.
Or that knowledge even. Because it's not for you yet. You're not there.
Yes. And we need to grow a little at a time.
Yeah.
You can't expect to read the Bible for the first time today and have all knowledge of what God's about, and your relationship with him is not going to be, one.
He's not going to be the strength. Yeah. It's not going to be the strength of like a 20-year relationship or whatever.
Yeah. So, God fully knows you, but we don't fully know him, and we never will.
Right. But as we learn to rely on him more, but there is a thing when I've noticed a phenomenon or for real thing that God does is he puts a fire in new Christians.
Oh, yeah.
And tell you, if you've just been recently saved, use it.
Yeah.
Because that gives you such a head. It's like he gives you a head start.
You're right. And you need it because you're going to be under so much spiritual attack.
You are.
It's not easy.
It's not. But God gives you that extra strength and power, I think, because he knows that. Yeah. I think that's why he does it. But I mean, he does do it because I've experienced it myself and I've seen it in many people. Mm-hmm. And it's just really awesome to see like he compensates for all those things. Because I feel like too, if you don't know enough about God and you don't have that strong relationship with him, he's just giving your relationship a little boost. Yeah. Like, here, let me put some steroids in this relationship a second because you need to get to where you're going to stay with me or whatever. Mm-hmm. And all those things. So
I kind of wondered if sometimes because I was praying over a lot of different people when I was praying, like for the spirit of wisdom and revelation, right? People who are really strong in their faith have been a Christian for a very long time. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to be offensive when I say that because we all need that and we should constantly strive for that until the day we die. Yes. Like, because God is always working in us, always growing us, and we're never going to be there.
What's that saying? If you're not growing, you're dead.
I don't know, but
something like that.
That might be true. I mean, stagnant.
I think that's even like a secular saying, but that's the truth even in Christianity. Like, you're stale. Yeah. You're stale. You're complacent. We were just talking about that at church. Yeah. It's like if you're not growing in God and he sees that you just are like not caring. What was that in Zephaniah? Yeah. Where, you're complacent and where God and what God does for you and where you're at with God and you don't have to actually actively grow or seek him. Yeah. That's staleness. God does not like that. You need to continue to grow.
And once you get to that point, like if you are stagnant like that, I mean, that's just like room to grow away from God. Like, it's a dangerous space. Yes. And I can feel it sometimes. Yeah. If I'm not being in my Bible regularly, I feel that me kind of slipping away.
Yeah. Even when I'm doing works for him and that's taking up my time, like editing the podcast or working on mission board stuff or doing outreaches, all that is great. But when I'm not in the Word, I still feel that more frustrated doing those things or, it's just different when you are getting closer and closer to God. It gives you that strength that you don't get other places. His Word, there's no substitute for.
Right. And, when you're talking about that complacent, I had written something in my notes while Pastor Rob was preaching. And so in Zephaniah 1, well, I just recommend you read the whole thing because
it's like a whole group. It's a group.
Yeah, so it's like can get the whole context, but God was going to bring judgment on the nations, right? But also later there's restoration. So with God, there's always a chance for restoration if you just accept him, accept Jesus, right? But anyway, so Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 12, it says, "At that time I will search Jerusalem with lamps and punish those who are complacent, who are like wine left on its dregs, who think the Lord will do nothing, either good or bad." So there's no fear of God there. Yeah. And also no expectancy of him to do something great with like no hope there.
Yeah, that's right? No hope and no accountability and no growth.
Yeah. So just another way to think about complacency is those who settle down comfortably. And I think that was in the CSB version. So I wrote that in my Bible.
For example, this would be a person being complacent. Well, I go to church every Sunday and I listen to the sermon and I follow along in my Bible and then I go home and everything's fine. God loves me. And that's the end of it.
Yeah. And so like for that verse 12, the note I wrote, so I put the people's response, I put, "They are blind to God's power and love." and they are complacent and foolish, which we all get like that sometimes. Like, I don't ever want to be blind to his love.
And you are.
Yeah.
Like, you are when you think, how am I going to do this? How you don't think of it like that, but when you are blind to his love, when you get despaired and you're like, how am I going to get through this? What if this or that? And I get like this. I'm not saying I don't.
Yeah.
But then you forget who God is and how much he loves you.
Yeah.
What
And
God is capable
having
of.
a love like that, unconditional, like not like any worldly unconditional love. This is no matter what you do, you can always come back to him, you know.
Yeah.
He loves you that much. Just ask for forgiveness and you got it. And he's the most powerful being.
Yeah.
So, man, why wouldn't you want that in your life either?
Yeah.
Ugh.
So, Christina, will you pray us out?
Yes, I will. Dear God, thank you for the message today that you're giving. And I hope that it can help others and just help us as well, just to really think about what you're speaking through us, that we belong to you and that's all that matters. And Lord, help us to reach out to others around us and also to let others in who are reaching out to us. Lord, help us to notice one another and just truly notice each other and to be aware of our needs and to want to help and serve them, other people. Lord, and just help us to be more like Jesus every day and guide us. And thank you for your grace and mercy, because without it, we'd be nowhere. And just help us to feel like we belong, not to constantly shut other people out because of our own insecurities, Lord, and just help us to use our weaknesses for your good. Lord, be with each of us through the week and help us to be in your word and to hunger for you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. You've been listening to Christians in the Gritty.
I'm Christina.
And this is Melissa.